episode 2 of The Monk and the Mechanic, Communication. You try to explain what we do to other people.
Yeah.
And why? Mainly because they say, what are you doing this Saturday? Oh, well, we're going over to do the woke house thing. What is that anyway? Well, so you start to kind of try to explain it, and you're like, well, it's, Buddhist, and then, but really, when you think about it, to say, or somebody will say, well, I'm Christian, what are you? To say that you're Buddhist, when you think about it, to label it is an oxymoron from the Buddhist thinking.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is you don't praise Buddha as a god, right? You're not praying to him. He is an example to you. And not only that, but the whole idea of you as a person, as a individual, Kiley is this person you are and this persona, and you're Buddhist is like the opposite of what is being taught. So it's that almost is a good example for how you operate in this world. You have to give it a label just in order to convey information to someone else.
Yeah.
But the label has no meaning. That's like saying, what are you? I'm Christian. What are you? I'm potato. You could use any word you wanted to.
Yeah.
But it, what that word conveys, at least gives an idea into it. And I noticed that you when you tell people, well, it's not really Buddhist, it's Buddhist, and stuff like that, you're trying to stay away from that label.
Yeah.
Just like for years, I would say, well, I'm a Christian because I believe Christ existed and was a prophet.
Yeah.
But I don't praise him as a god. That's never made a lot of sense to me as far as any other religion as well. I've never thought of that in that way.
Yeah.
So to me, that never really resonated. And it's the same thing with the Buddhists, like, oh, well, I'm a practicing Buddhist,
Yeah.
What, you haven't got it right? Well, no, nobody's gotten it right? I mean, one got it right, or several got it right. Yeah, right. 5,000 years ago.
2,500 years ago.
2,500 years ago. So, I mean, you got to say something.
So Terrence McKenna, I don't know if you know who that is. He's a proponent of mushroom eating for the psychedelic experience. One of the most intelligent people I've ever heard in my life. Like, I listen to his podcasts and his videos and stuff all the time. I've never eaten mushrooms. I never plan to. But the reason I do is because he's so intelligent. And he says that, we talk about all this philosophy and all this, metaphysics and all this stuff. Just eat 5 dry grams of mushrooms and you'll experience it,
Yeah.
And so he's like, these scientists, and then, they're making, psychedelics illegal, and they're doing all these 5-year studies and stuff. Just eat the mushrooms and then come back and tell me, Right. And so very practical in that way. But one of the things that he says is we're stalled in our evolution because of our language.
Yeah.
We can never evolve past our language. And so like what you're saying is we try to convey things to someone else via this spoken language using words. And it's always just ways of talking around things. It's never the essence of what it really is.
Elon Musk says that is one of our greatest holdbacks as far as technology is how do you communicate with your phone? Well, you can talk to it, right? But it has a hard time picking up inflections and stuff like that. So you type into it. Well, how slow is that? You've got these 10 fingers, and usually you only use 2 of them. I use 1 of them. And so how slow is that? You're sitting there trying to type something out on your phone.
Yeah.
Let me search for something. A, B, C, and then you hit the search button. But you think so much faster than that. So I would wholeheartedly agree with that on any level. In fact, I have a horrible time trying to formulate what it is I'm going to say and convey it in a way that's either not taken the wrong way or totally not what I'm thinking, because the words don't really seem to fit into what it is that I'm trying to get across. There's several times I've said something and people have looked at me like I just shot their mother, and I went, what? Like I don't, what did I say? They took it from a completely different way, which is not the way I was trying to convey it. So if we got rid of the language and somehow we're able to communicate on another level, yes, I would wholeheartedly agree that would move us forward.
There's some theory, talk about UFO ancient alien theories. When me and Diane went to Big Bend, we saw the picture graphs that the Indians had written on the cave, walls. And so I've been heard, and I think Terrence McKenna might have spoken on this too, is that a visual language is a lot quicker than a written language. In other words, being able to see something visual like picture graphs is literally like seeing somebody's thoughts. You're not reading it so much as you're having the same thoughts as them. Yeah. Which is a lot quicker than A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. You speak a different language. I speak a different language. We're from different cultures. Like you say, like in only one part of India, they may speak 12 different languages. Right. Different dialects and stuff. Right. So we're losing all kinds of stuff when we try to communicate. But if you can write that in picture graphs, then literally when my eyes go across it, I'm having the same thoughts that you are in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's something definitely that would help. I think it's gotten better because it used to take a decent amount of time. If you had to say there was a fire 2 houses down and you had to picture graph it to somebody, that might take you break out your paint and you go, by the time you get actually conveyed to somebody else, the house is already burned down and so is yours. But today's memes is a good example of that. Right. Although memes are sort of reproductions of posters that have been going out for years and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I agree. We're very visual. It's it's much easier to see something and be in the same frame of mind. Now, does that mean the future holds for us that we show each other pictures to have a conversation? Yeah. Could be, but then, your pictures get kind of like, watch, I want to tell you something, watch this slideshow clip. I agree, but how do you make that to where, like, we're having a conversation right now. Yeah. As I think it, I formulate the words, I put it to you, right? Yeah. Then you do the same thing. Are you picturing things and then figuring it out and then putting it into words and then sending it to me? So that takes that time? Probably. That's how I think. I would only imagine that's how most everybody else thinks. So how do you take that formulating into words out, but yet keep the pictures and send it to you?
Yeah. So, let me say this about that first. So, what was I going to say?
Just picture.
Part of what's happening when you're talking is it's triggering different things in my memory. Mm-hmm. And I'm making different connections to the things that you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. And so while I don't really think I think in pictures that much, because I do have someone that I know that literally you can't talk about dog poop, you can't talk about throw up, you can't talk about diarrhea, because they literally see those things in their mind and they'll start gagging. If you say the word is the equivalent to the picture. And so you have to be careful what you say around this person. And that's not the first person I heard that literally thinks in pictures. I think I might even think in words. Going back to like picture graphs and stuff like that, what if we are devolving instead of evolving as far as language goes? Mm-hmm. And so they said that there could have been a time when we didn't even have to use verbal language, that I could send a thought to you. We could communicate just via thought. And that may sound strange, but I can foresee that. There's times that I'm close enough to somebody where I pretty much know what they're thinking. You know what I mean? Or I can pick up on facial features and things that might indicate what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next step was maybe putting those thoughts, drawing them on the cave walls.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the descent downward.
Right.
Trying to capture thought in writing.
Right.
The next thing you know, they're coming up with an alphabet. And now we're using not only writing the language, but now we're having to use our voice to make these grunts and these sounds because you're no longer able to hear my thoughts.
Yeah.
And then we're just evolving downward and even into the phone. Yes, it may be happening quicker. We can tell somebody that the house is burning down by texting them. But at the same time, we might have been able to think it and everyone around us pick it up.
How many times do you think something and it's a pop-off thought, but you didn't want it to go somewhere else?
Yeah, all the time, all day long.
So, the idea, especially about someone.
Yeah.
Right? So you're a guy, and you're a married guy, and you walk into a room, and there's a beautiful woman in there, and what goes through your mind? Well, all kinds of things. Now, do you want to broadcast that to her? What is she going to think? You dirty old man. Oh, get away from me, or whatever, right? So
I only have pure thoughts.
I'm sure you do.
I see her as a sister.
I'm sure you do. Moving on. So
no, your mind works randomly like that, right? Random thoughts come to your mind, and you don't want to telegraph them out to the whole world.
Somebody lets one go in the room, and you think, God, what a disgusting pig.
Yeah.
You want everybody in the room to be like, oh, oh, God, well, he's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
But here's the trick. They might have worse thoughts than you do.
Yeah.
That comes back to an ability to be able to only send what you want to send rather than sending everything.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to know what people want, you just have to look at where people let things go.
Yeah.
Like you look at the cell phones. Why does everybody like cell phones? Well, it's because it's simple. It's in your hand. It holds a lot of information. Why is texting more popular than calling people? You now have this cell phone in your hand that you could just say hello, and the other person goes hello, right? And they go, wow, this is great. You could just talk to people. No, I'm going to send you a text.
Yeah.
Why? Takes longer. Harder to formulate the information to you. I have more control over what I tell you in a text.
Yeah.
And if I'm feeling terrible or I'm feeling wonderful, you can't tell the difference, really, unless I want you to.
Yeah.
That
is true.
So I think...
But is that a good thing? Because here's the thing. Like you said, if you could read my mind, you would know what kind of pig I really am, right? Even though some of it's not my thought, it's reactionary, right? But in a communal situation like a tribe, let's say, if you could look at somebody and know what they were thinking, you would have to really be working on yourself. You're like, if I'm going to survive and be a part of this community, I got to get rid of some of these negative thoughts, these gross thoughts, these unhelpful thoughts. You know what I mean? Now we can hide our real selves. And how many times have we seen that over and over and over? This person puts on this beautiful front to the whole world. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves them. And then you find out that they're doing all these crazy backwoods things and you didn't know the real person. But if you could hear their thoughts, they would really have to contend with their defects of characters so that they could survive in the community.
That's true. That would be a very, and it's possible that everybody would understand each other a lot more and realizing, because you brought up a good point today. When something goes wrong, you start to question yourself. You start to question other people. Am I crazy? Is this a correct thought? Am I going down the right path? Is this right? Oh, no, yeah, don't worry. Everybody feels that way. And somehow you feel better. Oh, well, I feel better. Everybody feels that way. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Clearly not. There's been several times in history where, that has not been, the consensus has not been the right answer.
Yeah.
But somehow it makes you feel better and you seek it.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows everyone else's thoughts. Mm-hmm. There's no hiding. There's no place to go. There's nothing to do. You are connected to everyone else all the time.
Yeah, if it's, let's say that, Germany, the Nazi whole thing, where consensus didn't turn out to be the right choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
People were reality checking with each other, and they all agreed that doing the wrong thing was, and it came from a form of mind control. The propaganda, you would say, kind of led into that somewhat. And I know history is your thing, so I'll let you jump on that. But in a way, the evil was being hidden by a putting a fresh face on the propaganda, saying little by little, it was like drop by drop did they change the mind of people, right? And so you didn't know the real evil behind it. You could only see what was on the billboards or on the radio or whatever. And at first it looked fine. And then eventually it turned into, oh my God, there's 1 million people buried in these mass graves. How do we come to this? If we could read each other's thoughts, we would have never gotten there. Because if I'm a Jewish guy and you're a German and we're sitting in the same room, you could pretend like you didn't hate me.
Right.
But if I could hear your thoughts, immediately I'm like, dude, why are you thinking those things about me? That's not right.
Yeah.
Let's deal with this right now until... Let's not wait 5 years where I'm in a mass grave somewhere.
I would agree with that to a point. I believe that the falsity involved in that and several other things, not just the Germans in World War II, slavery, genocide, all of that comes down to self-denial.
Mm-hmm.
My life is better now than it was. Why did that happen? Well, these other people are kind of in the way. But it's okay because they're not being hurt. I'm willing to accept the fact that it looks like they're not being hurt. I'm okay with that. Does that make it right? Of course not, because now they're in a worse position than they were. I'm in a better position, but I've told myself that it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There were internment camps in America, nothing like what was in Germany.
Right.
Where Japanese were placed, where Germans were placed, where, Italians were placed. Because they were a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And those people, there were some in San Antonio. And so everyone felt better knowing they're not being harmed.
Right.
Okay. And I'm safer for this. Okay. So self-preservation, I believe, is the mask involved in that. I think that's the real problem with that. Now, that has
to relate to communication somehow.
It does,
because how did they? In other words, you didn't see a lot of people sitting around saying, "Hey, you're Japanese. I think you should go behind this fence until the war is over." It was more like subtly it came about. It came with the thought first.
Yeah.
And then legislation, and then orders given to the police, and then orders given to other people. And then suddenly, without the Japanese guy even knowing, somebody's knocking on his door.
Yeah.
And saying, oh, by the way, now there's this new law. You have to go behind this fence.
But just like we're talking about, there's a guy down the street from a Japanese family that watches Pearl Harbor happen and says, there's a Jap down the street. We need to get rid of him. Well, he's probably with them. Yeah. Hey, they're probably all together. Just like when you run into somebody from Australia and go, hey, you know what? I met somebody from Australia. His name's John. Do you know him? Yeah, it's a small country. There's only a few million people there. Sure, I know him. Of course not. Right? But you would just make an automatic quick connection.
Yeah.
And say, clearly, I got it. I go to New York every summer and I get all the time. San Antonio. Oh, yeah. I got a friend down there named Fred. Do you know him? Sure. There's only 1.8 million people in San Antonio. Sure, we've run into each other at some point. Yeah. Of course not, and everybody really knows that.
Yeah.
But again, it's that self-denial. It's like the, I'm right, you're wrong sort of scenario. Would everyone being connected take care of that? Of course it would, because then it's easy to self-denial when you don't have to look at it.
Yeah.
We look at pictures of genocide all the time, and we say, oh, too bad for them. Now, what if you heard all of that person's thoughts?
Yeah.
What if you saw it through their eyes? Would you be as quick to say that sucks?
Well, that's the Buddhist part of that, right?
Right.
Is that in Tibetan Buddhism, particularly, we talk about exchanging yourself for the other. So, and Christy brought us some stuff in meditation today about seeing the world differently, maybe performing the same tasks, but doing them for a different reason. The tasks didn't change, her mind changed.
Absolutely.
So in the same way, I can go from being very self-centered to suddenly being a little bit more compassionate, to suddenly having sympathy, to the next step is having empathy, to the next thing is, I am you.
Yeah.
To see you sleeping in that gutter is like me sleeping in that gutter. We need to do something about this.
Somebody told me the difference. I don't know if this is true or not. I've never looked it up. I say it, and that's one of those things I hate doing, but I say it, and I don't know if it's 100% true. Somebody told me the difference between sympathy and empathy is you're looking at it from their point of view. You are in their shoes. You've taken on their problem. Now you both are in the situation. You're both in the dirt together. And empathy is, I'm sorry you're in that situation. That stinks for you. More of an outside looking in, feeling it like, oh, that sucks. But then moving on, and going on to the next thing.
Well, I don't know if I heard you correctly, but I think it's exactly the opposite. I'm not sure if I heard you correctly or not. But sympathy is, I feel sad that this is happening for you. And empathy is, I feel sad with you.
Oh, okay.
Sympathy is the guy's down fell in the well, and you're looking down and saying, I sympathize with your plight, man. It must suck being down in that well. Empathy is jumping down in the well with them.
Okay, so it is backwards.
And saying, I'm feeling what you're feeling. We can both get out of this together if we work together. That's empathy.
Gotcha. So I got that backwards.
You should look up things and research them before you say them.
I shouldn't say anything. Shouldn't say anything until I know exactly where it comes from, who said it, on what date.
That's where we need the laptop open where we can look up this stuff before even.
I got it here.
That's cheating, though, right?
That's kind of cheating. Yeah, you need your cell phone. That's my extension. It takes me 2 minutes to do it. See if I could do it in pictures. And be like, computer,
right?
Look at that. Well, and that that kind of leads into when you're communicating with somebody in a tough situation. It'd be great if we could mentally attach with somebody to feel their plight.
Right.
Coming from a sort of a how do you do it, kind of perspective. What are the mechanics behind it? How would everybody be connected? Would you just be able to communicate with what you wanted? There's a lot of questions involved in that. But I mean, and if you were to open up and say everybody's thoughts are everybody's thoughts all at any time, your head would explode.
For several different reasons. That's why you're the mechanic and I'm the monk in this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So you're thinking of the mechanics of it, which is completely right. In my perspective is that it would be real uncomfortable for a long time, but eventually, like everything else, we would get so used to it that it would transform consciousness. It would transform the world, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I could really, so part of not identifying with people or sympathizing with people is self-preservation. I don't want to feel those feelings. If you're suffering, I want to push suffering out of my life. I don't want to accept more suffering into my life. But in reality is, if you literally felt my suffering, you would try to alleviate that. And then I feel this person suffering, I'm going to try to alleviate that. And then they feel somebody suffering, they're going to try to alleviate that. And you see a chain of all people working together for the good of each other because it's self-preservation. I'm not trying to help you because you're separate from me or to fix you. Mm-hmm. I can feel your pain. That's why I'm going to try to help you eliminate it or whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're all literally connected. I'm just throwing thoughts out there or whatever, but perhaps, it would be a better, brighter world if we could all feel that connected to one another.
I want that to be true. I feel like that's incredibly optimistic.
Okay.
Because I feel like there are a lot of people out there, not everybody, and maybe not even the majority. It'd be hard to tell that until it actually happened.
Yeah.
Okay, but there's a lot of people out there that self-preservation, that self-denial comes out, and they, we're sitting here talking, and you think, that other guy across from me is a pretty cool guy. When push comes to shove, he really feels that way. But you don't know until all of a sudden all veils are removed. Yeah. Now you're in a situation where you are a bricklayer and you build houses and you build buildings and you build all this stuff. And now all of a sudden you're in a position to where you've been a pretty sympathetic guy
yeah.
that has always been helping people and does the Toys for Tots drive and goes and helps people on the weekends. And, you really kind of go more than the average person. And now all of a sudden you're flooded with all these people that you want to help. And you do, because it's in your nature, and you go and you do that. And now nobody's laying the bricks anymore. Just very small scale.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now what happens is you're going to help other people, and that is incredibly, wonderful thing, right? But now I'm the person that hired you, and I'm the person that's my responsibility is to get those bricks laid.
Yeah.
I am not the kind of person that's going to be sympathetic to everybody or even empathetic to everybody and go help everyone. I think, you know what? Your problems are your freaking problems.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I wasn't born in that country. I'm not a blah, all kinds of terrible things come out when you start talking about self-preservation, because I take my life very seriously, and I'm not working on myself because I feel like I'm fine. And yeah, well, now who's going to do this stuff? And all of a sudden you begin all these issues and problems. Maybe that's an initial problem. Maybe a generation would fix that, of everybody being used to. I mean, we're a very... obviously we're a very adaptive species, but we're not at the same time, because we adapt our environment to what suits us. When we don't like it, we don't accept it, we change it. So just say we all woke up one day and we no longer had to communicate with each other on a physical level. Everything was mental. It's going to be a huge push to shut that down. Somebody's going to come out with a helmet that you put on your head, that
aluminum foil,
that you can't communicate with anybody else, because this is just overwhelming and this is too much, and I can't, I just can't do this, and I can't do this, because they have to break out of that shell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they have to be put in that situation to where, now it's put up or shut up. It's, you feel what everybody else feels. Your entire world is crashing down around you because you built this house around you based on these ideals that now mean nothing, because you can communicate with all these other people and you see what it truly is. And not only that, even more scarier, everyone sees you for who you are, for real, not look at my Facebook profile and see what a wonderful person I am. No, now what goes through my head. When I walk into a room who I'm looking at and why I'm looking at them. Know that when I see, and I'm not trying to be political here, but when, somebody's not thinking in the best of lights, according to anybody's book.
Yeah.
There, you could say there's only one Hitler. There's only one, God, I can't even think of his name right now. The Roman emperor.
Nero.
Yeah, there's only one Nero. There's only one of these terribly...
Caligula.
Yeah. Caligula. Yeah.
Caligula, yeah.
So there's only one of them out there, but there's not. those are the ambitious ones. Those are the ones that are willing to put themselves out there to get what they really want, but they're not the only ones that think that way.
Born in the right conditions where they could reach that height in power.
Excellent
when in
point.
Reality,
excellent point.
There might be tons of Hitlers born every day, but they never get the opportunity. Lightning doesn't strike where everything lines up for them to have any type of power to act out on those things. Yeah, you went really dark, Josh. Man, I was so hopeful.
And it just all came crashing down. But see, every time there is an evolutionary change like that, it does change everything,
It does. And I think we would, like you said, where we would adapt over time. It may take many generations. But initially, I talk to people that have ADHD and stuff like that, and it's sensory input overload.
Yeah.
And so there's too much happening. I don't notice it because I don't have ADHD.
Right.
But to somebody that has that diagnosis, everything's happening at once and everything's a distraction, They medicate themselves so they can concentrate on one thing at a time and actually get something accomplished, So if I was hearing everybody's thoughts nonstop and I was also empathizing with their plight in life, it might be pretty overwhelming. And so, like you say, you may be a generally caring person, but if you got to care for every person you walk by in the grocery store and you feel their sorrow, you might turn and go the exact opposite and say, I don't give a shit about anybody. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to know this. Your problems are your problems,
Definitely.
And like you say, you would try to find some way to self-medicate or make an aluminum foil hat or something to stop those thoughts, until the next generation was born that way. And then it was just normal to hear people's thoughts. And then their children were born that way. And then their children were born that way. And so whether it would actually make a more compassionate society or would it make society more, evil and more self-centered? You know what I mean?
It's hard to say because we can't see everybody's thoughts.
But, I have to think that the reason why somebody would rape somebody is that they don't really see them as a true human and know what it feels like to be raped.
I would agree.
Or murdered or beaten or talked down to. And so if you could flip a switch and see that literally this person that I'm punching in the face or I'm taking advantage of, I'm feeling those feelings now. I've read widely about life after death, right? And so in all these different traditions, the person says that they're standing beside God, Buddha, Muhammad, an angel, a loved one, and they're getting a life review. They're watching their life from birth to the day they died. And the only thing that's different in this life review is they're able to see the impact that they had on other people. So much so that it's interactive. You're not just yourself in the life review, but you're everybody in the life review. And so you're able to feel the feelings of that dog you yelled at, or the person you fired, or the wife you cheated on. You got to feel it in the first person when you lived it, and now you're able to see it from every angle and see it how it affected everyone.
That's a good point.
And in a life review at the end, it's not God judging you. You judge yourself.
Right.
You're like, dude, I worked my whole life for nonprofits. I taught meditation. I was such a kind, loving person.
Right.
But that's only from the first person perspective.
Right.
When you rewind the film and watch it again and you feel what everybody else is feeling, wow, I was kind of a dick. Wow, I was pretty self-centered. Wow, I really did do things for self-seeking reasons and that kind of stuff. And it affected my friends, my family, my job, all these things in a negative way. You know what I mean? And so is that beneficial at a life review? Maybe so. Maybe that's where we kind of go back to the drawing board before we're born again. Reincarnation. Try it again. Here's another life. Right. Now you see where you screwed up. Instead of going left, go right this time.
Now, talking about that, if you come back here to learn the same lessons that you didn't get the last time, we're based off of our experiences in this lifetime, and say you don't remember the last lifetime. I mean, there's those people out there that do, but say that you don't, and you're living this life, and you don't remember where you messed up last time, and you don't have that experience of understanding that that's what you're here to learn. Then it's like hitting the reset button and you start all over again.
Well, I can only assume that at some subconscious level you do remember. And plus, I think they say, the laws of karma will put you in the right position to learn what you're supposed to learn.
So you're faced with the same thing that you screwed up on last time.
In a different way with there always being the option to make a different choice. To do it right this time. And it's almost it's not definitely on the forefront, like you say. You have no memories of it in the past, but it's the winds of karma that are blowing you back into a situation where you do have that opportunity to make a different choice.
So maybe even in the subconscious, you would make those choices to get yourself right back in the fight again.
Yeah, and I think we do that. I think that. And it could very well be the same with the Hitlers being born. It's like maybe part of those, let's just say 50% of them, they say, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. Maybe I need to readdress this. Yeah. Maybe acting purely out of ego isn't in my best interest. Yeah. Because I ran into this preacher, or I ran into this monk, or I ran into this nun, or somebody was kind to me when I was a kid, or I got this good friend that counsels me. Now I'm going to go in this other direction this time. Right. They don't remember being Hitler in the past life, but at a gut level, it feels better to go left than go right this time, Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that could all be bullshit.
You look back at your life and you go, nah, that's fine. That guy was a dick anyway.
Yeah. Or we just die and go in the ground and worms eat us. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that goes with anything. Who knows?
Yeah.
You don't know until it happens, but
it's fun to talk about anyway.
It is. That's all you can do is talk about it.
Interestingly enough, though, another thing that I research a lot is UFOs, right? Yeah. And the majority of the people that say that they've been abducted, they're taken onto the ship and these things are done, but the aliens are speaking to them telepathically.
Yeah, yeah. To kind of tie this in with technology and the way that we're evolving and have been evolving is we're constantly pressing the communication issue. We're constantly trying to formulate that to get it right, to where it matches everything, to where I can convey to you exactly what I want to convey to you, when I want to convey it to you, how I want to convey it to you. I want to beam my thought into your head. Isn't that great? Writers, I imagine, would say not necessarily, because I'll write something out and then I'll review it and then I'll make changes to it to try to make it say exactly what I want it to say.
Yeah.
But on a day-to-day level, I don't think it's that serious. So, when we get into, used to be, in order for you to find something out that happened on the other side of the world, they had to type it onto something and then print it and then ship it to you, and all this sort of information to get to you. Now we've evolved to a point to where you get that information, within seconds of it happening, right? So I think we want that to happen. That's the goal. The goal is for me to be able to communicate with you no matter where you're at, but what I want to convey to you.
Right.
Not random stuff, not some crazy thought process about the end of the world or about what chicken really is or, whatever.
It's
right.
More about productivity.
Right. What I want to send to you, bam, here it is. Okay. and we formulate our technology into what we want. So we went from a telephone that only worked at your house, and when you went out somewhere, there was no way for me. When I went out and hung out with my friends when I was a kid, my parents couldn't get a hold of me. There wasn't any, let's find out what Josh is doing. That just wasn't a thing. You send him out the door. You say, good luck. Hopefully, you've learned everything that I've said to you, and you don't make any really stupid mistakes, and go, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what it used to be. Now, I wonder how Josh is doing. Let me text him and find out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to convey that information. I want to reach out to you, and we have created technology to do so. What's the next step?
Right. But why have we done that? Like we talked about in an earlier podcast about the phone is now an extension of our bodies. So it's our telepathy now.
Right.
That text and
yeah.
Siri, text my wife to bring home some milk.
Yeah.
I might as well be sending that thought to my wife's brain.
Absolutely.
Because she's sitting there holding her phone.
Right. And I think that's the goal. I mean, I think that's the goal now.
But are we trying to get back to an earlier time when we could just do that normally without a contraption?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes back to the ancient alien things. Sure, I think that's something that we know. Honestly, I think that's something that we know from the next level. When we die and we move on, our consciousness moves on. It moves into a realm where speech is not necessary. Pictures are not necessary. We're all operating on the same level. It's not something where you have to, you can say it's telepathy if you want to, but really that's thinking corporally, so I mean, I think that's something that's ingrained in us, and we're always trying to kind of reach back out to that. I think that one of the reasons that we don't do that on our own, that we don't just do that automatically, is because we have sort of made an agreement not to do that. Because there is a lot of lessons to be learned from not being able to just reach out to you and say, whatever, right? I'm looking at you and now you got what I'm thinking. I think that the ability's there. Some people can have kind of honed it to where, like you get to know somebody so well, they can kind of finish your sentences or know what you're thinking or be on the same wavelength. Mechanically, our minds do work like that. We put out signals, we put out a wave, a thought pattern that goes out and could very easily be picked up by somebody else. We make machines that do what we already do. How do we know how to build machines? Because we take ourselves and we take the things that we have available to us and we recreate those things. A computer, even though it's not round, works just like a brain does.
Yeah.
Okay. The only difference is we manufacture it, we put it together, but it works off the same process we do. It's electrical impulses that are run through circuits on and off pretty close to the way our brains do. Signals, it's essentially the same thing. It's maybe mechanically a little different, but it's pretty much based on the same thing. And it operates with electrical impulses just like we do.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about brain waves going out, well, we create radio waves that go out and can be picked up and received. I think we know how that works. We have a basic knowledge of that. But again, it's harder. Mm-hmm. It's harder for me to learn to be a good person when I'm only accountable to myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm only accountable to you when I open that door and let you in.
Yeah.
I'm not accountable to you if you don't know who I am, or, you meet me on the street. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do.
Right. I can always look away.
There's a lot of stuff that you have to learn as an individual that you're responsible to yourself for. If you've got a cat and it's just you and the cat living in the house and you go home every night and you tell that cat you're a SOB and I hate your guts and I can't stand cats and freaking blah, blah, blah. And the cat kind of understands what you're saying, but not completely. As long as you feed it and you pet it every once in a while, it doesn't really like it, but well, whatever. I can live with this, right? and then you come over to my house and my cat's a butthead. Well, most cats are buttheads. So are you going to be able to tell the difference? Do you know what I do to that cat when you're not here? Do you know all the stuff I say to it? You have no idea. I'm accountable to me.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have to work on myself. I know what goes on inside my head.
Yeah.
And I have to do that. If I could just beam that to you, now you and me are in this room together.
And I know you're a cat hater.
You know what I do to that cat when nobody's looking, right? You know, and that's a real soft, easy way.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, that's what do I feel like? I feel like we agreed not to do that, to communicate with each other on that level, because it's too easy.
Well, you know, and the same thing it goes is like, dude, we have no concept of time. Like, we might have agreed and not agreed to do that billions of times just on this planet.
Yeah.
Like, let's do 1 billion years where we're hearing each other's thoughts. Oh shit, that sucks. Let's try another 1 billion years where we don't hear each other's thoughts. Oh, wait a minute. It sucks trying to figure out this corporal body and everything being so hard and real. Let's go into another dimension where we're just in the spiritual realm and we don't even communicate with each other.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. You know, there's multiple parallel universes and without even going into deep detail about that, let's just say in this reality or this dimension, there's so many planets and galaxies and, you know, potential variations on life, even on this planet. You know, they say you kick over a log and there's 1 billion different species there and bacteria and everything else, you know. So I remember doing this one time. I don't know what was going through my head. I don't think I was on anything. I think I had just been meditating maybe too much, but walking across the yard, I felt that there was so many living things that I couldn't see.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about spiritually. I'm talking about every blade of grass had some kind of bacteria on it or something. And it was like I was too conscious of everything being living around me. Yeah. You know? And so then even where I put my foot down was like, am I crushing something? Yeah. You know? And it literally made me draw back from that. Like I didn't, you know, I wouldn't want that to be my reality where I felt so much all at once. And then I was responsible for everything. Every step was potentially interfering with those living species, you know? Yeah. So
I remember being a kid, and I remember one time specifically just all of a sudden realizing like I just moved my hand. You know, feeling like I was on autopilot, and then realizing like I can open and close my hand. I just told my hand to do that. I could do whatever I want to do. I am right now making every decision, you know, like super conscious, like, oh my gosh, I was, you know, chasing a frog 10 minutes ago, trying to beat it with a stick. You know, what am I doing? You know, like what is going, kind of like freaking out that
suddenly you realize you're in a body.
Yeah.
And you are controlling it.
Like waking up, you know, but, you know, woke.
Getting woke, yeah.
But, you know, realizing that I can make whatever decision, you know, like all this stuff is totally up to me, you know, from like you're talking about, every step you take has a reaction, you know, like, oh my gosh, there's these pile of ants out front and you know, and just kind of realizing everything, like feeling yourself in the world. And then 10 minutes later, I'd forgotten that was, you know, what was going on. I'm out there trying to catch the ants on fire
with a magnifying glass.
Yeah. So
we talked about that, you know, moving from the consciousness of the nature's here to serve me to I'm feeling, if nothing else, just sympathy for nature, right?
Yeah.
If you know, I remember my dad always pouring poison on the ant pile, you know. But as a kid, I felt for those ants.
Yeah.
Like I used to go out there and watch them for hours.
Yeah.
And so we're coming from two different perspectives.
Yeah.
He was just killing these goddamn ants that were messing up his yard.
Yeah.
And to me, he was killing my tribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
My family.
Yeah.
You know, so going from self-preservation, I don't want to get bit, to having a little sympathy, to being completely empathetic with the plight of those ants that work so hard to build that colony.
Yeah.
And then some asshole can just walk over there with some poison and in a heartbeat destroy the whole colony, you know.
One of the closing things with this is, if we were all connected, and let's say we were all connected to each other, it's very arrogant to think that we would only be connected to each other.
Yeah.
That we wouldn't be connected to everything else on the planet. And I'm talking, you know what a chicken thinks.
Yeah.
You know what the warbler thinks. You know what the cow thinks. You know what the dog and the, yeah. So to say that we communicate with each other on that level, to really fully understand everything, we would have to communicate with everything on this planet at that level.
And at this stage, we don't even believe that dogs communicate with each other, or dolphins or anything. We have some kind of vague understanding that whales communicate, but we don't think that butterflies communicate, you know, and I think that's bullshit. I think our thoughts are so limited about the other species, and they may be speaking through telepathy, and we don't even realize it, you know.
They might not have made that agreement.
That's right, not in this life anyway.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Kiley, and I'm the monk.
And I'm the mechanic, and I'm Josh.
Bye.